Man, oh man, there has been so much today, and I truly don't know where to start. So I'm just going to make sure that we start off with a few facts. So a couple of facts that we need to make clear for everyone is that, number one, Director Christopher Wray, when he was appointed to be the head of the FBI, was appointed by Donald Trump. Now, I will agree that I definitely take issue with a number of decisions that Donald Trump makes, especially when it comes to the people that he decides to appoint to very important positions, including this one, because I did have to make sure that I wasn't going crazy. But when I say that you are the least qualified FBI director in the history of the FBI, that is real, because you are the only one that never even served with the FBI prior to joining, yet we are supposed to believe that you are the greatest thing since sliced bread. I didn't ask you a question. Now, what I want to go through is to talk about why you are a failure and why, honestly, we just need to tell you bye-bye. I know that you got a little upset and you put on your show for your boss because it seems like you're trying to save your job when it came to talking to Senator Booker yesterday. But let's go through some of your failures. So before you were even confirmed, and I think one of my colleague from Georgia, pointed out that you were already targeting career officials so that you could direct illegal firings. Mind you, these cases that you were so upset about, which are the ones tied to Trump, the cases came through his handpicked FBI director. And frankly, when people sit around and say things like, oh, you know, we're happy because now we feel safe, I don't know who feels safe in this country except for the white supremacist, because I specifically as a black woman definitely don't feel safe. And frankly, my colleagues have been real nice to you today, and I applaud them, but I don't have the same demeanor because I know that multiple colleagues on this side of the aisle have faced death threats. In fact, somebody tried to kill one of my colleagues, and frankly, I don't know if this FBI or under your leadership, if those people would have been caught. I don't have any confidence in you. And if we start talking about the reasons that I lack confidence, we could start with you not just wanting to acknowledge some simple facts. Simple facts like the vast majority of the threats are coming from right-wing extremism. And I know my colleagues have tried to stress this, but I decided that I would maybe do it in a different way. Number one, I have a couple of UCs. Kim Buck, one of multiple Republicans receiving death threats for voting against Jim Jordan as House Speaker.
Without objection.
Another one, Republican lawmaker says she received death threats after voting against Jim Jordan in Speaker's race.
Without objection.
In addition, there was another one from another colleague who now is leaving Congress because they said that they were calling his wife anonymously and threatening her life to the extent that she ended up sleeping with a firearm.
Without objection.
Okay, so here's the deal. How are we supposed to have confidence when you're sitting up here telling the Senate yesterday that it will take you 14 years before you can get the FBI fully staffed to do their jobs? You're also now redirecting resources so that they can go and play ICE agents on the streets. You're getting rid of your most qualified people, and even when it came down to somebody that you consider to be a friend, you were posted up having some fancy dinner to the extent that you posted not only once erroneously, you posted twice erroneously as it relates to catching somebody, and then you want to go and say, let me take a victory lap, because honestly, if it wasn't for parents deciding that they were going to turn in their child, it seems like y'all wouldn't have got there, even though he literally confessed online. So I'm confused about what it is that the FBI is doing except for trying to put on a show for The Apprentice, or whatever you want to call him. The day after all of this took place, there was domestic terrorism that was taking place at HBCUs. They were targeted. Yet I didn't hear anything from the FBI about what was going on. And again, black people kept saying, how did we end up in this? because the numbers are so very clear that white supremacy is a problem. And honestly, I've not heard anything out of you today that makes me believe that you're going to do anything about the white supremacy problem, the one that is leading to children being killed, children being shot, as well as members of their community as they're worshiping in their churches.
The time of the gentleman is expired. If the gentleman would like to respond to any of that. Well, I mean, I'll respond. Kash Patel, as I said when I introduced him, public defender, former prosecutor, top staffer on the House Intelligence Committee, Deputy Director of National Intelligence with the National Security Council, Chief of Staff at the Department of Defense, and FBI Director. I think that's a pretty good resume for the guy who's now running the top law enforcement agency in our country, and we've seen all the stats that he's given to the committee on how much better they're doing at getting the bad guys than the previous guy was doing.
While we are talking about taxpayer dollars, let me tell you, and you know, Donald Trump agreed with me at some point in time about this particular one. I have another UC. Elon Musk gets $8 million a day from taxpayers.
Without objection.
Thank you so much. Listen, if we want to start talking about who's donating to who and who's getting money, last time I checked, Elon Musk did close to $300 million to get him into office, and it seems like there was a direct payment right back to him. I get that it's not a not-for-profit, but at the same time, it is federal dollars. And you know what? Earlier, someone mentioned these hellholes, talking about the cities, right? Talking about cities being hellholes. I just want to point to Los Angeles. I'm sure that's one of the cities they were referring to when they said that. Los Angeles contributes almost $20 billion in taxes. You know what? That's more than all states in this country except for 4. So guess what? If we are going to push any ideologies, it seems like LA should have an outsized interest in the ideology, because it seems like they actually contribute more money than all these other states, especially these red states, to be clear. In fact, I have another UC.
Without objection.
All right, blue states are bailing out red states. I have another UC.
Without objection.
Massachusetts sends more funding to the feds than any other state. It seems like blue states are constantly putting red states on life support, yet we got these little red states that ain't contributing nothing, but they are definitely taking up a lot of money. You know, it is interesting because the governor in California, I don't know if you caught this, but Governor Newsom was talking about just holding on to his dollars, because California is what they call a donor state, meaning that they actually contribute more than they take from the federal government. And then you can go down south to states like Louisiana, who are broke, and so they need California to pay in. So it is so interesting that we are so concerned about whether or not we are pushing certain ideology.
Donor state. Actually, the state of California gives nothing to the federal government. Individuals and businesses do pay taxes, and Governor Newsom's suggestion that we should withhold those taxes, as our Treasury Secretary has pointed out, is threatening to commit the felony of criminal tax evasion. As to this notion that Los Angeles is somehow a model of good governance, just today, Los Angeles came out with its new homelessness numbers. The current count is 72,308. The police chief in LA has formally advised people not to wear jewelry when they go outside because they will get mugged. The city just announced 614 layoffs because the finances are such a mess. And this is to say nothing of the recent riots and the catastrophic wildfires that came after the mayor defunded the fire department. But on to the topic of today's hearing. It's bad enough that we have all of this funding going towards NGOs that then support radical ideological causes. Sort of the logical next step that we've seen is funding organizations that then directly commit or facilitate criminal activity. And this is exactly what we saw with respect to the recent riots in Los Angeles, where you had a group known as CHRA, the Center for Humane Immigration Rights Los Angeles, that played a central role in organizing the riots. They made use of a hotline through Signal where they would inform rioters at any given moment where ICE personnel could be found, so those individuals could then converge, they could disrupt their operations, they could use commercial dumpsters as battering rams, they could assault officers, and so forth. CHRA, by the way, has been implicated in other ways in all of the recent chaos that we've seen. For example, the incident where tire spikes were used to disable the vehicles of Border Patrol. The individuals engaging in these crimes were carrying the tire spikes in bags with CHRA's name on them. And to top it all off, Karen Bass's recent proposal to give cash cards to illegal immigrants supposedly affected by ICE operations are being distributed to them by, you guessed it, CHRA. So I've introduced a bill, the No Tax Dollars for Riots Act, which will make sure that organizations like this do not continue to get funding, and indeed that they cannot claim tax-exempt status. President Trump has enthusiastically endorsed that bill and said it should be passed immediately. On top of that, this committee, the House Judiciary Committee, has opened an investigation into CHRA's use of the federal funding that it received during the Biden administration. It also received $34 million from California, accounting for the vast majority of its revenue. It's effectively a subsidiary of the state, or a subsidiary of the sanctuary state, if you will.
Unfortunately, we are witnessing today yet another political stunt, plain and simple. Republicans are here drawing a clear line in the sand. They will stop at nothing to advance Donald Trump's agenda and the dangerous blueprint laid out in Project 2025, even if it means targeting the very groups that are working to protect our communities and support our law enforcement agencies. Let's be clear, my colleagues across the aisle have shown little to no interest in working with Democrats on real solutions for the American people. Instead of addressing pressing civil rights issues constituents actually care about, like wrongful deportations of U.S. citizens, ongoing efforts to undermine voting rights, or the serious flaws in our criminal justice system, this committee is spending its time holding a hearing with a title that sounds like it was ripped from a conspiracy blog. This hearing, how leftist nonprofit networks exploit federal tax dollars to advance a radical agenda. Really? I mean, when I listened to you, Mr. Chairman, who I do respect, I heard you say things about why is it that we're giving money in other places? And I want to make sure that I answer that question, because to put America first looks like we are going to keep American citizens safe. There is a such thing as soft power, and that is exactly what we were trying to do when we engaged in things such as USAID. When you start to talk about whether or not Sesame Street or anything else that's on NPR or PBS ends up in other places, this is so that there is not this warped thought process about the Western world or about the United States. We're talking about making sure that we don't end up allowing people to be radicalized against us because they have a terrible vision of us, because they may be in a government that actually puts out bad, terrible propaganda about us. So for pennies on the dollar, we are able to educate those around the world on who we really are in America and keep Americans safe. Soft power is real power, and it minimizes how much money we have to spend, say, on dropping bombs in countries at a random time without, say, congressional authority. But I digress. This kind of rhetoric, whether directed at nonprofits, their leaders, or elected officials, is not only reckless, it is beneath the dignity of this institution. And sadly, this isn't the first time this has happened. Over the past 6 months, we've seen hearing after hearing do nothing but attack nonprofits, as well as those who are just generally on a mission to serve, protect, and uplift vulnerable communities. In just my own committees, this has got to be the second or third time I've had to sit through the same tired narrative. If my Republican colleagues are truly concerned about taxpayer dollars being misused for political agendas, I'd encourage them to take a long, hard look in the mirror. But since we're here again, spending more of the American people's money and time on political theater, let's at least stick to the facts. Fact. Under the Trump administration, the Department of Justice stripped hundreds of millions of dollars from the Office of Justice programs, money that funded essential community safety initiatives like victim services, gang prevention, and reentry support. Fact. Trump and Republicans slashed grants to organizations like the National Organization for Victim Assistance, which trains advocates who staff domestic violence shelters, hotlines, and rape crisis centers. Fact. They cut over $10 million in funding to the National Policing Institute, a nonprofit helping rural police departments reduce violent crime. Fact, this week, Republicans are trying to gut PEPFAR, a life-saving program that partners with nonprofits around the world and has saved more than 26 million lives. And let's not forget, many of these cuts were laid out in Project 2025, a radical far-right playbook drafted by hyper-conservative nonprofits for the express purpose of dismantling the very government institutions and systems that serve the public good. Ironically, we even have one of the authors of Project 2025 here with us today. So let's not pretend this is about nonprofit accountability, because if it were, this committee would also be investigating the Conservative Partnership Institute, which has pushed anti-immigrant, anti-LGBTQ+, and anti-vaccine propaganda and hosted efforts to challenge the 2020 election. Mind you, as we have these organizations that are pushing anti-vaccine propaganda, we know that measles has reached a 30-year high when measles had actually been over and done with. But now that we don't believe in vaccines, now children are our targets, unfortunately, and yes, they are dying. The New Century Foundation, a white nationalist organization that somehow maintains its 501c3 status to launder hate speech through the language of intellectual inquiry. Or they would investigate Turning Point USA, which has been linked to organizers of the January 6th insurrection. But Republicans aren't talking about those groups because this isn't about accountability. It's about silencing organizations that challenge Republican power. It's about targeting nonprofits that protect the very people this Trump-aligned movement continues to harm. These organizations are defending victims of unlawful actions. They're helping to combat global pandemics. They're supporting police departments when this very committee won't. They're working to build safer, healthier communities while Trump and his allies defund them to hand out tax breaks to billionaires. And maybe that's the real threat here. They're effective. They get people off the streets, out of prison, and into opportunity. They educate people about injustice, and that apparently scares some folks more than any so-called radical agenda. Because the only thing truly radical about these nonprofits is their belief that human beings deserve dignity, opportunity, and equal protection under the law. Values my Republican colleagues seem to have forgotten, along with love thy neighbor. So instead of demonizing the groups trying to do right by our communities, maybe we should be asking how to support them, how to ensure taxpayer dollars reach the people who need them most, because this hearing should be about public safety, not political vendettas. Until that happens, these hearings are doing more harm than good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
What is your response? Comment below. That's all for today. Thank you. If you want global news to keep you up to date on any new developments, please subscribe our channel and forward our content with your friends on social media and email. Thank you very much for keep supporting me. Stay safe. Be blessed. Namaste.
Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.